You think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once this entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you?
Hi there. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll start off with Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. The scripture encouraging diplomacy and wise decision-making to strive for peace while upholding justice. Well, you kind of could see from our opening video that we are going to be discussing the argument in the Oval Office last Friday with Zelenskyy and what President Trump is trying to do with all of that, as well as the tariffs that went into effect today against Canada and Mexico. And we'll also be discussing Prime Minister Trudeau's message to the United States and President Trump, the disrespectful message that he gave this afternoon or this morning. It was just awful. So Latanya and I thank you very much for joining us. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. We need to spread the word that to our fellow Christians on getting involved and knowing about politics. It is our duty to do this, and we cannot stick our heads in the sand like ostriches anymore. We have to be involved. So sit back, grab your popcorn, and we will be getting started real soon.
Yes. Welcome to Faith and Freedom, the conversation where faith and politics collide. We bring you real, honest discussions on the issues shaping America through a biblical lens. Here are your hosts, Kathy Ryan and LaTanya Evans.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to not the State of the Union, but addressing Congress.
The joint sessions.
The joint session. So
tonight.
Yeah,
we will be done in time for you to watch it.
Oh yes.
We're not going to try and live stream it again because we don't want to get shut down.
Yes.
So,
I know, right?
And again, and I just want to apologize for Friday for not going live. A few weeks ago, I was diagnosed with skin cancer, and the surgeon called me late Thursday afternoon about coming in on Friday to have it removed. And it was like a last minute thing. So we didn't get the word out to let you guys know that we wouldn't be on the air. So I do apologize for that, but praise God, I am cancer free.
Yes.
So, this California girl that lives in the sun, what do you get? Thank you. So, the exchange in the Oval Office on Friday, that was quite something. What are your thoughts on that, LaTanya?
Yeah. I tell you, when I saw that, I was like, oh, wow. I think that President Trump was holding his peace, trying to be uh, just peaceful, diplomatic, all of that. I don't think anyone has ever seen something like that happen before. And at first, I wasn't for sure, like, is he just talking? They're in a conversation because it started out very positive, and then it seemed to take a turn. And 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 I tell you, one of the things that struck me was the way the man was dressed. I was
Yeah.
like, why was he so dressed down like that? And I was like, wow. Then one of the things that struck me was how he addressed Vice President JD Vance. And he was like, JD. I'm like,
Yeah.
and Vice President JD Vance, he didn't go there. He addressed him President, Zelensky. So
Mhm.
I thought I noted that. And if you notice, the thing that where Trump was like, I can't hold it, was when he was like, you're gonna feel it. And I was thinking, is that a threat? I even was thinking, like, what does he mean by, oh, and you all got water, separating you, but you're gonna feel it. And then that's when Trump was like, no. He was like,
Right.
you're in no place. And that's when he, we're not gonna feel anything, or how he put it. So I was like, wow.
Yeah. And the thing is he was supposed to come, he was just supposed to sign the deal. They had Marco Rubio's our Secretary of State had already made the deal with them, and he agreed. All he needed to do was sign it. He didn't even need to come to the United States.
He did it?
No, he didn't. He just needed to sign it.
Wow.
He could have stayed in the Ukraine and sign it. And I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. And yes, disrespectful to come to another country's. You wouldn't go walking into the palace to see the queen or king dressed like that.
Exactly.
So why would you come into the White House dressed like that?
Right.
Like some militant dictator.
Right.
I mean, he is a militant dictator. It was just a lot of disrespect flowing,
was.
in that way. So I got a clip here. This is from Carl Higbie. It's a little bit long, but one thing that the media isn't talking about is why there's a war in Ukraine against Russia. Why did Russia invade Ukraine? So Carl Higbie explains the history behind it, and it's really good. So I am going to upload this video. Here we go.
I have heard so much from experts and historians over the last few days since that Oval Office meeting, which I thought was awesome, by the way. But I haven't heard anyone accurately describe how we got here, like globally, because some people genuinely don't care. And anyone who does want to talk about the history of this gets screamed at. It's like, oh, you're pro-Putin. So before I go any further, let me be clear that I think Putin is a commie who murders his political opponents and throws journalists in jail, among other things. He has violated multiple international treaties, including the Budapest Memorandum. But let's take 7 seconds to look through his history through his eyes, because understanding your enemy is very important in defeating him. What was Putin's goal this entire time, since like 1981? Most people don't know this because they don't ask. A lot of experts made assumptions that this is why they don't want, Trump talking to Putin, because they don't want him to ask that question. That way they can just define the terms and keep pumping money into the neocon machine. Putin's goal is and always was to keep NATO off its borders. By US, by default, that's the US, okay? In 1991, there was an agreement that reunified Germany after they tore down this wall. During negotiations on February 9th, 1990, U.S. Secretary of State James Baker told Soviet leader Gorbachev that NATO's jurisdiction of forces would not move, quote, 1 inch eastward from their current position if the Soviets accepted German unification in NATO. Now, fast forward to 1994, when Clinton signed off on expanding NATO. And in 1999, Hungary, Poland, and the Czech Republic officially joined NATO. Russia wasn't happy and had their objections, but they actually had no leverage to negotiate because they had just collapsed as the Soviet Union. Fast forward to 2004, where Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, 2 of which share a border with Russia, also adding Romania, Bulgaria, Slovakia, and Slovenia to NATO. And Russia, again, was super ticked off about this. And they said, hold up, this is not what we agreed to. NATO didn't care. Then, in April of 2008, at the NATO summit, a bunch of leaders issued a declaration that signaled a, quote, strong support of Ukraine and Georgia to eventually join NATO. 2 more countries that border Russia, as you can see. In the Bucharest Summit Declaration of 2008, paragraph 23 states, quote, NATO welcomes Ukraine's and Georgia's Euro-Atlantic aspirations for membership into NATO. We agree today that these countries will become members of NATO. Okay, so Putin's even more angry and went to war in Georgia to stop the NATO membership. People forget this stuff. Then in 2010, we put missile systems, NATO, in Poland and Romania. And the Ukraine president, Yanukovych, was expressly elected on neutrality in Ukraine, which Putin was cool with. But Russia and Ukraine were simultaneously negotiating a 25-year lease in Crimea for a Russian naval base. But then in 2014, while the U.S. tried to overthrow the Ukrainian leaders, which would have potentially put the Russian base there in jeopardy, those negotiations led to Russia taking control of Crimea because they were like, we're not going to deal with this anymore. Keep in mind, Russia had also invested heavily in natural gas in the region, and Ukraine was pumping most of it over to the EU now rather than Russia. Then you had the Minsk agreements that NATO gave autonomy to Russian-speaking bordering areas like the Donbass, the eastern side of Ukraine. And then the U.S. and Ukraine just decided not to enforce that. Then in January of 2022, Anthony Blinken, Biden's Secretary of State, tells Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov that the U.S. reserves the right to put missile systems in Ukraine. 1 month later, Russia invaded Ukraine. And raise your hand if you saw that coming. This is the part of history they don't want you to know. Also, in the first 7 days of the invasion, there were negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. Russia demanded demilitarization. And what happened? Zelenskyy walked away from those peace talks because he wanted NATO membership. But no one had this conversation, and no one wants to talk about it, and everybody who brings it up gets shouted down. So let me ask those people shouting at me right now, what should the U.S. do if Russia or China put a military base in, say, Cuba? Again, I'm not defending Russia. Wait, hold on a sec here. Russia did put a base in Cuba during the Cold War, and guess what we did? We responded with military action. Remember the Bay of Pigs? How would you feel if China put a military base on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls or in Tijuana, Mexico? Again, not excusing what Russia's actions here, but these are important historical sentiments that we should understand because that's how Putin is thinking if we really want to get to the bottom of peace here. And I think last week's White House meeting was the first time people really saw how potentially unreasonable Zelenskyy has been during this whole thing. Again, not defending Russia at all. They broke a bunch of treaties doing this. But when I say I don't like NATO, think of this. UK is part of NATO. They're putting troops in Ukraine now, or have committed to. The NATO charter says an attack on one is an attack on all. So what happens when one of those troops gets hit with a Russian mortar? Does that drag America into this war now? You see why de-escalating this is so important? I hope so.
Wow. So I have a question. The last part that he said that if Russia invade, okay, so how was he stating that if what happens, it could drag us?
Yeah, if Russia was to send a bomb and it was to hit one of the NATO countries, we would have to go to war.
Oh, while he's trying to fight the Ukraine.
Right.
Because Ukraine, we're not part with Ukraine, right?
Ukraine's not part of NATO. Zelenskyy wants to be a part of NATO.
He wants to be a part of NATO so he can get that protection from us and others. And so right now he's just a country independent.
Right.
Fighting, and we're just
So the deal that President Trump's trying to make will not include NATO. And I think that's why no, it won't, because for any country to become a part of NATO, it has to be a unanimous vote from all the countries that are in NATO. And there's a few that will not allow Ukraine to come in.
Okay. So this deal is not going to include that.
No, it's not including NATO. And he agreed to that. And then he's coming back. He wants to be a part of NATO. He wants to be protected from Russia, which I can understand that. But the thing is that I don't believe that Zelenskyy is trustworthy.
If he can,
there's a lot of corruption that comes out of Ukraine, a lot of dirty stuff. And so,
So then, so then this makes, okay, I'm better understanding. So Ukraine is not a part of NATO.
No.
He wants to become a part of NATO.
Right. But as you said,
from Russia.
Right. As Carl Higbie went back in time, there were a lot of treaties that said, with Russia, that there wouldn't be any NATO countries touching their borders. Well, Ukraine is the biggest country touching the Russian border. There's a lot of real estate there on that border. So he doesn't want Ukraine to become part of NATO, because that would mean that other countries could go in there and put missile silos in there to easily attack Russia if they became out of hand.
And that's not going to be good, because so then, and we got involved. So when people are asking
how we got involved, is because Biden gave them money.
So when Biden started this, so supposedly Biden started to give money to say, hey, let's help these people out.
$119 billion we've given them.
So that's how.
So that's dollars. That's not including equipment.
So then I have a question. So then with this deal, when President Trump is saying, if we do this deal, then we will be somehow a part of them. What does he mean by that?
So we've given them $119 billion. We've given it to them. Other countries have given them money too as a loan to help fight this war. Biden didn't make it a loan.
Oh, he didn't make it a loan.
You gave it to him. So President Trump says this is unfair. So in all fairness, to help you stop this war, you have large minerals deposits in Ukraine. It's rich in minerals. What kind of minerals? I don't know. I have to go back and study that. But rich in minerals. So basically the deal was, you give us 50% of the mineral rights. By doing so, America is in business with you. We will go in and help rebuild infrastructure and all this stuff, because the country's destroyed. I mean, literally destroyed. And we'll go in and help you rebuild. Plus, with us being in business with us, you will have the security of the United States. And if conflict were to arise, for the United States to protect their interests, of course, the military would be going in.
So then would that drag us into war?
I doubt it, because Russia does not want to go to war with the United States. If we go to war with the United States or even China, that's the end of the world. You're talking about World War III, it's done. You got nuclear powers, and one nuclear bomb is going to wipe out half the United States.
Okay.
And won't be able to recover for centuries. Pretty much.
Right. So my question is, if this deal is signed and it goes through, what would keep so then would that mean that so that would in a way cause President Putin to stop wanting to try to keep fighting the Ukraine, and the Ukraine, will that stop them from antagonizing Russia, knowing that, okay, now that we got this deal, we can antagonize them, and we know he won't push back because he doesn't want to get America involved. Do you kind of see what I'm saying? Could that?
Yeah. I think what's going to happen is Zelensky's going to be out. I mean, he's made a mess of this whole thing. And if the Ukrainian people have any say about it, they'll vote in somebody else. He's done. He's pretty much done. He's destroyed his political clout by the little tantrum he threw in the Oval Office.
Okay.
So the next clip is Marco Rubio and his response, because he's the one that made the deal with them that he went back on. They had a deal.
Wow.
All he had to do was come sign it. So I'm going to mute myself while I set this up.
So if anyone has a question, please leave the letter Q. I think we know the drill. In front of your question. And let's see. Yes. Thank you so much, Shireen, for that. Let's see. Kind of gets a yes, this is out of the norm. Do you normally? Oh, Connie, I thought you knew. So on Tuesdays, what we did, the big announcement that we made, not last Friday, but Friday before, was that we were going to be adding another, I'll talk more.
No, go ahead, finish. Go ahead.
Okay, that we were going to be adding another day in the weekday to Faith and Freedom, because on Fridays, and just it's so much information that's out there, we just can't get everything in on Fridays. So we added another day, which is on Tuesdays at 7:30. We went a little early tonight because of the president going to be doing his speech tonight, but it's 7:30 on Tuesdays, and it's called Faith and Freedom, the Conversation. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's Marco Rubio.
Okay.
And my source tonight is the Secretary of State, who is in that room today, Marco Rubio. Thank you so much, Secretary Rubio, for being here. We just heard from President Zelenskyy. He said he does not think that he owes President Trump an apology for what happened inside the Oval Office today. Do you feel otherwise?
I do, because you guys don't see. You guys only saw the end. You saw what happened today. You don't see all the things that led up to this. So let me explain. The president's been very clear. He campaigned on this. He thinks this war should have never started. He believes, and I agree, that had he been president, it never would have happened. Now here we are. He's trying to bring an end to this conflict. We've explained very clearly what our plan is here, which is we want to get the Russians to a negotiating table. We want to explore whether peace is possible. They understand this. They also understand that this agreement that was supposed to be signed today was supposed to be an agreement that binds America economically to Ukraine, which to me as I've explained, and I think the president alluded to today, is a security guarantee in its own way, because we're involved. It's now us, it's our interests. That was all explained. That was all understood. And nonetheless, for the last 10 days, in every engagement we've had with the Ukrainians, there's been complications in getting that point across, including the public statements that President Zelenskyy has made. But they insisted on coming to D.C. This agreement could have been signed 5 days ago, but they insisted on coming to Washington. And there was and should have been a very clear understanding. Don't come here and create a such scenario where you're going to start lecturing us about how diplomacy isn't going to work. President Zelenskyy took it in that direction, and it ended in a predictable outcome as a result. It's unfortunate. That wasn't supposed to be this way, but that's the path he chose. And I think, frankly, sends his country backwards in regards to achieving peace, which is what President Trump wants at the end of the day, is for this war to end. He's been as consistent as anyone can be about what his objective is here.
But what specifically do you want to see President Zelenskyy apologize for?
Well, apologize for turning this thing into the fiasco for him that it became. There was no need for him to go in there and become antagonistic. Look, this thing went off the rails. You were there, I believe. It went off the rails when he said, let me ask you a question to the vice president. What kind of diplomacy are you talking about? Well, this is a serious thing. I mean, thousands of people have been killed, thousands. And he talks about all these horrible things that have happened to prisoners of war and children, all true, all bad. This is what we're dealing with here. It needs to come to an end. We are trying to bring it to an end. The way you bring it to an end is you get Russia to the table to talk. And he understands that attacking Putin, no matter how anyone may feel about him personally, forcing the president into a position where you're trying to goad him into attacking Putin, calling him names, maximalist demands about Russia having to pay for the reconstruction, all the sorts of things that you talk about in a negotiation. Well, when you start talking about that aggressively, and the president's a deal maker, he's made deals his entire life, you're not going to get people to the table. And so you start to perceive that maybe Zelenskyy doesn't want a peace deal. He says he does, but maybe he doesn't. And that active, open undermining of efforts to bring about peace is deeply frustrating for everyone who's been involved in communications with them leading up to today. And I think he should apologize for wasting our time for a meeting that was going to end the way it did.
Yeah, he wanted President Trump to say how bad Putin was. And President Trump wasn't going to do that. He wasn't going to fall prey to making that. That would be a huge mistake. And he's right. In any negotiation, you don't call out the other side, no matter how you feel about them, and let them know how bad they are, even if they are. You don't do that.
Right.
You never get any kind of agreement when you're butting heads like that. And he came in like the little tyrant that he is and demanding certain things, and he did it on camera. It's like, what are you trying to prove?
Yeah. To hear Mark Rubio say he didn't even need to come to Washington. Right. And then he comes to Washington. Let's connect these puzzles. And then he's talking with some Democrats before the meeting. And then he gets in the meeting, and they're all thinking this is leading to an agreement, signing the paper, all of that. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't even know if maybe saying they were side blinded, but it's like, where is this coming from? You wait till you get on camera.
Right.
If you had some issue, couldn't you have mentioned that before?
Right.
But you wait. That's where it's like, okay, you were either somebody or in your mind, like, I'm going to try to show up the president of the United States. This was a bigger thing, and I'm going to how whatever he was thinking.
Yeah, he it was obvious that he was trying to show up President Trump and prove to the world that President Trump isn't as strong as he is.
That's it. Yeah.
From his previous administration, Trump keeps his word. Every promise that he made in his first term, he kept. every promise that he had made on the campaign trail this time, he's keeping. He's already fulfilled some of those promises.
Right.
And he's getting to the bottom of stuff. And this is one of them. He said that there would be a peace deal.
Right.
Well, if the little tyrant, and I probably shouldn't say that, but he's a little tyrant. If he doesn't want to make a deal, then I feel sorry for his people, and his people need to do something and stand up the way we did in this last election.
Right.
He said enough is enough, and we spoke up.
Yeah.
The people have had enough.
That's true.
I got one more clip, and this is from Greg Gutfeld from Fox News.
Okay.
About, was this a good thing? I mean, let me ask you guys, was President Trump kicking him out of the White House, was that a good thing? Standing up to him and not letting him get away with his little tirade and whatever he was doing, was that a good thing? Good thing or bad thing? Because on one side, it was awful, and then you got the Jasmine Crockett's of the world telling the world that President Trump is an enemy of the state. And here we go with all that stuff.
Yeah.
So here's this video. Let me load it up. And this is pretty good too, because I think he's right.
Is going on right now. One, it's like you're watching the media walking in on a movie at the third act, and they have no idea what happened before. And it's like, oh my God, one man is beating up another man. This is terrible. And then you rewind and you find out the guy that's getting beaten up had it coming. Yeah. He's a criminal and he deserved it. So right now, I find it funny because to me, this is a negotiation process. Anybody who's been in a negotiation knows there's always a walkout or a blow up. I've done it, I don't know, 10 times. I get up whenever I'm in contract negotiations, I leave. It's the best tip for anybody. Get up and leave. Yep. And you know what happened? It resets. My prediction is, of course, there's a deal. Yeah. This was just a little step along the way. And anybody who freaks out about it has never actually. This is the god of transparency. Donald Trump just showed you how negotiations work. He might throw you out. He's turned this whole thing into Celebrity Apprentice. It's a business. He realizes that if you want peace in the world, you don't spread democracy, you spread business, because you create business relationships with people, and then they don't want to kill you. It's as simple as that. So the question then, the funniest part is like, what do the Democrats do? How do you respond to, once again, this blunt common sense? It's always going to be about the methods. So whether it's about solving the border crisis or DOGE or now Ukraine, what's the pattern? Because Trump is right on all three, especially Ukraine, when he says, oh, look at all these dead people. And this is a consistent Trumpian vibe. He's a pacifist, hates war. He may hate it from a sober perspective that it's such a waste, or he may be emotional about it. Who knows? He hates war. So he's right on Ukraine. He's right on DOGE. He's right on the border. So if you're right on all those things, what do you argue about? The methods. The border's already changed for the better. We know that. It feels different, but what he did was so mean. Then you look at DOGE. The American public's behind DOGE, but he's so mean the way he's doing it. Then you talk about Ukraine. Did you see what he did to Zelenskyy? Doesn't matter. He's right. He's right. So you can argue about how he's doing it and that it's so harsh and unbecoming. It doesn't matter because he's right about the solution. So you can quibble all you want. We have a new president. He's got a pulse. He doesn't need a life alert. Zelenskyy just found out that maybe he should wear a suit next time. Those are tiny little things. The big deal is when you're right on the issues, sometimes you got to be harsh. In all those areas, he's the adult in the room, which is exactly what we voted for.
He's the adult in the room, and that's what we voted for. We voted for somebody who was going to stand up on the world stage and represent America and represent Americans. Us giving them Ukraine $119 billion to fight a war that they can't possibly win. Even if we were to give them all the money we had, they can't win. You're muted. And so, yes, it sounded like Trump and Vance were being, President Trump and Vice President Vance were being rude, because Shireen said it sounded like they were being rude. I would encourage you, Shireen, to go watch the whole time, because that was at the end. They were in that Oval Office on camera for 52 minutes. We only saw, the media is only playing 7 minutes of it. I haven't watched the whole thing, but I imagine there was some exchanges, and President Zelenskyy got out of bounds and wasn't listening. And the thing is that it's not the first time that somebody has lost their temper with President Zelenskyy, because back in 2022, Biden did the same.
Yeah, they said Biden.
It was a phone conversation, and he lost his temper with him too, because he stamps his feet, he acts like a toddler, and these temper tantrums of a 2-year-old, and it just, and he's not grateful. He is not grateful for us to help him. And there's a chart out there, and I wish I had it to show you guys, but the United States has given more money than all the other countries combined to Ukraine.
Wow.
And all the other money is a loan, where Biden gave them the money, as I said earlier.
But who does that? That's the thing. Who just gives that much money?
The Biden administration.
But there had to be some backhand underdealing.
Sure, there was a funnel, and it got just like the USAID.
And wait, and that's what's so even crazy, because if they ever found that out, that would mean that the Biden family stole, that's Americans' money that they got.
Exactly.
Because it's the Americans, taxpayers' money that went to fund this. And if they ever find out that it was channeled, into a different, then that's like, hey, give me my money back,
Exactly.
Wow.
And I'm sure there's some underhanded deal, because when Biden was vice president, he was over there a lot, and Hunter had Burisma. I think Burisma is a Ukrainian deal, and then Biden says, "You want the money?" And it's on tape. There's a tape about it. As vice president, he says, "You want money from the United States? You need to get their attorney general to resign."
Yeah.
And they did it. And why would you want an attorney general to resign in another country? Were they looking into things?
Exactly.
It's all suspicious. And I'm, not saying that, there is proof of wrongdoing and stuff like that on the Biden side. Why would before he left office, why would he give his family preemptive pardons?
Right.
If there were no shady dealings.
Wow.
And it's all suspicious. So that's that on the Zelenskyy deal. And today he comes out begging, "Oh, I'm sorry, I want to make peace," and all of that good stuff. So that happened today. And then also today, the tariffs went into effect against Mexico and Canada. And Prime Minister Trudeau, another loving liberal dictator, is throwing a temper tantrum as well. So, little bit background on these tariffs.
Yeah.
President Trump campaigned that if Mexico and other countries didn't cooperate in closing the border, he was going to impose sanctions or tariffs. The tariffs that went into effect today are those about the border, about not securing the border. I heard about that, and I need to watch that. Glenn Beck broke it all down. I heard that was really good. So, basically, neither country has secured the border to President Trump's satisfaction on their side. Canada has a huge network of making fentanyl and bringing it into the United States across the Canadian border. So
I actually have a quick question. And it may be like you're just now asking this, but yeah, I am. Fentanyl. What actually is fentanyl? I know it's a drug, but what has it been used for? Like, is it like
it's a painkiller?
So fentanyl is something that if you go to a hospital for a procedure, they would give you fentanyl?
Yeah. I've had fentanyl. They've given it to me in the hospital, and it's very controlled. It's a very powerful painkiller. The thing with the fentanyl that they're making, it's laced with other stuff that is poison, and you touch it with your hands, and you can overdose and die.
If you touch fentanyl with your hands?
Yeah, if you touch it with your hands. One of my agents, her granddaughter, and it looks like candy, found a plastic bag on the playground that had fentanyl in it. She OD'd. She survived. They made her get true. It's a horse tranquilizer.
It is.
That's what Angela says. It's a horse tranquilizer.
So what kind of people get it though? Like for what? I mean, I'm just saying. So if a person deny it,
they're drug addicts. They're people that are
no. I'm saying when they give it to you in the hospital. Like, do you have to take that drug, or that's been around?
When I had the bowel perforation, because my pain level was beyond a 10, they gave me fentanyl.
Okay.
It's much powerful. Yeah, it's quite quick acting, and it's more powerful than it works quicker than morphine.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. So people who get it, what kind of feeling are they getting? Like, what's the point?
Well, like any painkiller, it numbs you. And that's what
I'm talking about how people are getting it, like becoming addicted to it. Like, are they? What is
because
that
they
doing?
want it because they want to be numbed. You get hooked on it, and you don't want. I don't know. I'm not an addict, so I really don't know why you get on it. But any painkiller, it numbs you. You're kind of in a euphoric state. Some of it, yeah. It's numbing. It's numbing. It's like alcohol. It's for people that can't deal with problems, or anxiety or anything like that. That's where they get into these addiction states. So here's a clip from Senator Cruz explaining why the tariffs. So I'm going to cue this up. I'm going to mute myself so you can keep talking, LaTanya.
Well, thank you everyone for mentioning about this drug because I don't know. I mean, I've heard it, but I'm like, what is it that is addictive about it? So, like, does it make what does it do for the person? And so, um, that's why I was asking. Like, wow, that is, whew. But I'll just say this. That is so sad that that's the thing in our world today is that no one wants to feel anything. And that's just and I all and it's normal to have the mixed emotions. But okay.
I'm muted. So here we go with Senator Cruz.
For joining us.
Great to be with you.
We have a lot to dive into, so let's get right at it. First, tariffs with our two allies, Mexico and Canada, are set to take effect. You saw the impact on the stock market. Are you worried at a time when the price of basic goods like eggs continue to skyrocket that this may mean higher prices for Americans?
Well, listen, President Trump uses tariffs and the threats of tariffs for multiple different purposes. And one of the purposes that he uses them for is as leverage to incentivize other countries to do things that are in America's interest. What he has laid out with respect to Mexico and Canada is these tariffs as leverage to cause them to do even more to help secure our border and to stop the illegal immigration that we've seen and the fentanyl that has been flooding into this country. I got to say, in that regard, I enthusiastically support what the president is doing. We have had for 4 years a national security and a public safety crisis at our border, 12 million illegal immigrants, and I support using every tool the president has to secure the border, to keep our families safe, and to stop the over 100,000 Americans that are dying each year from drug overdoses. It's truly a crisis.
And yet industry leaders, Senator, we just heard from the automobile industry's leaders, Ford CEO, saying that long-term, a 25% tariffs across the Mexico and Canada borders would blow a hole in the U.S. industry that we've never seen. He said he's not the only one, of course, concerned. Does the president need to walk some of these tariff threats back?
Well, listen, my hope is that these tariffs and tariff threats are leverage that will incentivize Mexico and Canada to do much more to secure our border. That would be a good outcome for Texas and America. Texas does a massive amount of trade with Mexico and a massive amount of trade with Canada. And so I don't want to see tariffs go into effect, particularly not for an extended period of time against Mexico and Canada, because that would have harmful impacts on the Texas economy. So my hope is this will prove to be what it proved to be during Trump's first term. During Trump's first term, he threatened 25% tariffs against Mexico unless Mexico helped us secure the border. That produced the Remain in Mexico agreement that resulted in the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. So my hope is these tariffs against Mexico and Canada are leverage to secure our border and not an ongoing economic policy.
So it's the tariffs are, leverage. The negotiating tool, I want you to close the border, otherwise we're going to impose these tariffs. So neither one of them secured the border very well. So in turn, because they went into effect, here's Kayleigh McEnany and a little bit of Trudeau's temper tantrum this afternoon or this morning. So I'm going to mute myself while I cue this up.
Okay. Yeah. I had put in the comment section how Shireen, you mentioned it was morphine when you had the gastric bypass. Others, I'm thinking, who when they have maybe had a major surgery or something that is like, okay, there's a legitimate pain that the medicine is needed for.
Yeah, there is. I mean,
but for people who just want to take it and there's no pain associated, then what is the feeling?
Well, sometimes, well, a lot of times the people that get addicted did have an injury and did get put on opioids, and they got hooked on them. So that's one reason. So, but here is on Trudeau's his speech today, which again, just like Zelenskyy, was totally disrespectful to our president.
Quite a morning, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is taking shots at President Trump in a rather personal way. This is over the newly implemented 25% tariffs that went into effect. Now, a short time ago, watch this closely, Trudeau had a direct message. He even called the president Donald.
I want to speak directly to one specific American, Donald. In the over 8 years you and I have worked together, we've done big things. We signed a historic deal that has created record jobs and growth in both of our countries. We've done big things together on the world stage, as Canada and the US have done together for decades, for generations. And now we should be working together to ensure even greater prosperity for North Americans in a very uncertain and challenging world. Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do. We two friends fighting is exactly what our opponents around the world want to see.
Now, here's what makes this interesting. The comments you just heard come about 72 hours plus after another foreign leader tried the same strategy, picking a fight with President Trump, the commander-in-chief, the leader of the free world. We saw Zelenskyy of Ukraine take on the same kind of confrontational attitude. And interestingly, this same hour, as one leader stood up to pick a fight, another backed down. Zelenskyy posted this. Check this out. He said, "I would like to reiterate Ukraine's commitment to peace. None of us want an endless war. Ukraine's ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer." This is the interesting part. Our meeting in Washington at the White House on Friday did not go the way it was supposed to be. It is regrettable that it happened this way. It is time to make things right. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany here with my co-hosts, Harris Faulkner and Emily.
So, yeah. So, you know, and then Trudeau imposed tariffs on the United States. And President Trump's response is that any tariffs that you impose on the United States, we will in turn impose the like. I got another video here that explains Carl again on, because everybody's saying it's going to cause economic crisis here in the United States, that we're going to be in trouble. We can't afford to have tariffs raised on goods that come in from Canada into the United States, and so on and so forth. Well, Carl, he explains it pretty well. So let me upload that video. And this is a good one too.
Well, and would you look at that? This cycle, with it's like almost everything Trump does. It's like a loop, okay? Trump wants something from someone doing something that benefits America. Trump does something outside the box, mineral deals, tariffs, withholding funding, military support, whatever it is. Libs always then freak out, say, oh, it's not going to work. There's like the little instability in some markets for like a few days, and a few leaders in the world are, oh, they're so shocked. And then the foreign leader caves, and Trump gets what he wants. America is better off, and the left moves on to the next outrage thing, and the cycle repeats itself, just like you're seeing. I expect Trump is going to be highlighting this tonight, probably too, as he should, because you would be hard-pressed to name me something that he's been wrong about in the long run. I mean, of course, today, all the libs, Mexico and Canada, they're like up in arms over Trump's reciprocal tariffs. Canada holds this like big press conference where the outgoing leader guy, Trudeau, warns Americans that this is going to hurt them too.
We don't want this. We want to work with you as a friend and ally. And we don't want to see you hurt either. But your government has chosen to do this to you. As of this morning, markets are down, and inflation is set to rise dramatically all across your country. Your government has chosen to put American jobs at risk.
This guy thinking, I mean, it's the arrogance. First off, dude, don't talk to me like you're some great leader that like I should be looking up to you, okay? The only thing that's up is the fact that you are longitudinally above us. You got booted by your own people. Second, I love how he's like trying to make this out like he holds the cards here. He's not going to appeal to the American people, first off. Okay. And also, Trump's not backing down on this. Canada, yes, they imposed their own tariffs today, too, of 25% on $30 billion of the imports immediately and another $125 billion in 21 days. Whoop-de-doo. Of course, Trump put it on Truth. Quote, please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada that when he says Governor Trudeau, that when he puts a retaliatory tariff on the U.S., our reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by a like amount. So they could, like Canada just could have had the initial tariff on imports, but now they're getting even more of them because they don't know how to do math. I don't know if that's what it is Trudeau is bad at. But let me tell you how this is going to play out, Justin. Canada will have to come to the table long before America will. Canada has a GDP of like $2 trillion. US dollars, too, not those Canadian dollars. Our GDP in America is 30 or almost $30 trillion. And 80% of Canada's exports are to us in the United States of America. It's not economically possible for them to survive this for more than a week or two without people actually having real hardships. Their immigration minister, Mark Miller, said yesterday, quote, we can't replace an economy that is responsible for 80% of our trade overnight, and it's going to hurt. Yes, he's one of the reasonable ones. We export like 2% of our economy to Canada. Same goes for Mexico. Sure, a couple of things are going to go up in price here. But if you recall, Trump said this. He is essentially reorganizing our standing in the global economy. He's isolating certain countries in a strategic order with tariffs.
So there you have it. It's strategic play. It's a tool. And, you know, Canada's going to lose in the end, unfortunately.
Yeah.
If it come. The sad thing is Trudeau resigned. His last day in office is, I think it's March 14th, which is a week from Friday.
Wow. So, of course, he doesn't, you know.
Yeah. So, you know, I wouldn't be too worried about the tariffs because Trump did this. President Trump did this in his first term. He charged tariffs. We didn't feel it. I don't think we're going to feel it now. I think we're going to feel more what's happening with them killing all the chickens, you know, with the avian bird flu. So, yeah. So, well, President Trump's speech is due to start in less than a minute. So I don't mean to cut the conversation off, but I know it's going to be an important one. And we'll probably be discussing that on Friday. possibly.
Yes.
Yeah, on Friday. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for your support. Please like and share the program. Also help us support by going to faithandfreedomshop.com and support the channel. And we appreciate you. Until Friday.
Until next time.
God bless you all.
Bless you. Have a good night.